Um, Following last week's piece on the two most prevalent alt media groups, the Q Group and Lifeforce, I've decided to do a roundup of their news this week. And Q posted panic in DC again as something being different when it's been panic for near 4 years. He also posted the term fifth column. Again, this is nothing new. The reality is the entire governmental structure in this country has been fifth column to the American people since a minimum of 1871. Now, Kim, in her news, mentioned a new general within the White House and claims 70 of the deep state actors have been removed, which is great stuff. And she also resent the Fulcrum files again this week of all the dirty laundry on all the politicians and various entities connected to the government. Now, one hopes that this time it is used appropriately and actions are taken accordingly, which was not the case with the previous deliveries of those documents. Kim also, 8 weeks after claiming she eliminated all student debt, 6 weeks after she was rebuked on her show because they returned after being suspended for 3 to 4 months due to the CARE Act, now claims to have eliminated student loans again this week as a favour, and in return for giving the government $1.47 trillion in exchange for paying off all student loans. Now, other stipulations Kim and her team made was the conditions of funding, was that the mandatory vaccines had to be removed from the stimulus bill, and that the stimulus checks to the people must be added in. Now, that is a great move. And Kim stated there was a guarantee from Mr. Trump that he would announce at the end of student loans by 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday afternoon. As of writing this on Wednesday, no announcement was forthcoming. Kim claimed that the Clintons transferred all the child trafficking and pedo stuff over to KPMG servers recently, which is odd given they were on the KPMG system when Kim accessed it around February, and saw for herself the crimes committed and content, and also the evidence of the Team Bubba's group involvement in pedophilia and child trafficking as well at the same time. Now, the Team Bubba leader is linked to the DNC via a child exploitation ring, and how many others in that group are connected to it remains unknown at this point, or whether the sex porn server issues that brought up several leading alt media personalities, which is also tied to the DNC, is also unknown at this point as well. Kim then claimed that the KPMG was now shut down and that this will lead to progress going forward. As of yesterday, the KPMG website and servers were still operational. We received no update on the progress of the enforcement unit and the subsequent arrests we all look forward to. We got no answers to the questions we posed last week, although it was suggested that they would do a Q&A section early next month. For those who have noted a certain repeat loop reverse time jump pattern to the content of their shows. Yes, I see that, and yes, we will watch it closely. Now, the key portion of the show this weekend is Kim and Tank claimed that they have FDA approval for a healing machine, which is in and of itself great news. It's much needed. But at this point, I'm exercising caution, not because of Life Force, but due to the several claims of others in the alt media circles like Keenan, Kesh, and others claiming their machines will do this, that, and the other, and yet to date none of them have come to fruition on any public-wide basis. And the same will apply to the Cosmic Tower that is being brought forward by Harold Tiers. It requires deeper thinking on any potential side effects, or can it be weaponized in some way against the people? That is my only concern. Is it 100% beneficial to the people, and does it have or any potential side effects? So just because Harold is connected to our group, I will still question Harold with the same vigour as anyone or anything else before I get accused of just attacking one group again. But I am hoping this one can break through and help the public, provided it does what it says in the claims made and has no side effects. So the machines were stated to cost $25,000 each, and Kim said she would buy them to put them in medical centres on behalf of the trust. Now, the session costs are said to be $250 per session, although it was stated in the show a general physician would only charge $100 an hour. I'm not sure why the discrepancy. Maybe it's snake oil salesman again. But Tank states that the medical insurance should cover it, but was kind of unsure if that was the case. Now, one of the questions posed by their follower and not answered by Life Force yet is, please explain the interface connections and how the quantum aspect and how it comes into play. And also, what does it change or modify inside of a person's body? Because if it's going to change our being into a different or controllable person, then I don't want it. There were similar concerns raised within the comments section, and that pleases me as people are thinking more and better. For too long now, we've just accepted the narrative on a plethora of things and not looked at the potential kickbacks. It's a bit like universal basic income. It sounds all fantastic, free money. But nothing comes free in this world, not with clowns in charge. And we don't look at the potential kickbacks, the weaponization of it, or any side effects. So I started doing my own research of a similar, or it may even be the actual device, because it was not stated who the company was in the show. And it consists of an electronic frequency style box, a cable that hooks into your laptop or computer, and a head brace with wrist and ankle straps which you attach to the person and then hook it into the computer to interface and interact with. Now, at the risk of being called a rogue element again, I would like to raise my concerns about this. Because if your computer contains viruses or programs, can this not be interfered with on a computer level? Can it send rogue frequencies to interfere with people and endanger the people using it? With GoOgle, NSA and various other CIA-connected entities all hooked into and controlling our computers, one feels our computers, and there are phone models for this as well, would have to be made 100% clean before we hook into this machine in this manner. And one has to ask, is the CIA now going CAI? So let's run a scenario, shall we? This machine initially starts to work and it goes viral. The medical giants start to lose vast amounts of money. What happens next? In come their kickback funds to computer tech people, like Palo Alto, to create a program that kicks in every time someone uses or starts using the Healing Machine program, and meddles not only with the program itself, but the people using it. Sound valid? One other thing that I was tweaked into a pondering whilst writing this was the Montauk chair, where people were strapped in a chair, bound by straps and wires, and wore a head brace, and were then hooked into a machine. That was MK Ultra program. Is it possible the rogue elements of society suddenly turn all these machines into heightened versions of MK Ultra on people who are already weaker due to sickness? Does this scenario sound far-fetched? Or am I just being a killjoy? Or is it valid discussions required before we launch people into a potential disastrous scenario? You've got to remember, for many of you, a decade ago, you thought that the television was not a mind control device. You thought that school taught children, not indoctrinated them. You thought the government works for the benefit of the people. You thought the justice system brings fair justice. You thought the government wouldn't poison food, water, and air. You thought their drugs and vaccines were safe. You all thought wrong. And this is why we have to question things in a balanced and non-biased manner. Now, given the mention of the memory shift described in the show in relation to PTSD, which sounds like a switching of the alters within a person, in my opinion, which is not a cure, but a transference of the problem, and that should be made clear to people. Switching of alters may bring relief to one problem, but it can bring a whole heap of other problems as well. I know this all too well, having done work with several people with alters and attachments, and so I'm not speaking without knowledge here. These need to be addressed urgently before we launch into another piece of technology, virtually all of which to date have been weaponized against the people, Now, it can be seen as challenging or dismissing the Life Force channel, but that is a deflection, and the people require answers to valid questions posed. But I have posed issues to do with technology since I started broadcasting, and quite why now it is seen or deemed as a deliberate ploy or critique of one group remains a mystery to me. And to the many of you in THI and also the Life Force UNC members who have also contacted me with these concerns. We need to look very closely at all technology, all the pros. It's great listening to the pros. It's what we want to hear. But we have to evaluate the cons before we launch into anything. Now, due to people questioning both me and Kim again, here is a final statement on what did and what didn't happen. THI didn't pay Kim any funds. THI has no funds because THI is not a business. The TPC, the People's Club, didn't pay Kim any funds either. I'm going to repeat again for the hard of hearing. The People's Club did not pay Kim any funds out of the donations. The TPC has not paid me 1 cent, despite running over 95% of it myself in the last 4.25 years it has been running. And that is all anyone needs to know. All donations that were sent all went to the right cause or causes or destinations as requested by the donators. As for my Patreon and how I spend it or who I spend it on is frankly nobody else's business. Now, I want to thank all members far and wide who have and continue to donate to me to support my work, and also the TPC in what are difficult times for many. It is never forgotten or taken for granted, your generosity. Now, whilst we're on the same subject, this was brought up by one of our members this week who said this. This is something I've been researching for the past couple of years now, and bioresonance frequency testing and therapy. The long story short is it works and works fast. I've spoke to this in the THI UK group meetings and even had the idea that all drug-pushing doctors should be replaced with bioresonance therapy, as it's much safer and a lot more effective than prescription medication. Now, to show I raise concerns with all of this and not just one group as stated, I then asked the member the question, so we replace all doctors and nurses with a machine. What do you do with all the doctors and nurses? And this is where I come in, as I look at things from an overview basis. And some people can think it's being critical or critiquing. It's not. It's widening the picture and covering all bases that this show is known for. All of us at times, and this is including myself, too often get lured in and are focusing on the product, the funding, or the event, and not what happens next. Consequences of actions should always be considered, unless we wish to replicate the Clowns Ouroboros programs. Now, I'm not dismissing healing tech per se, just to be clear. I'm not. But we have to fully investigate it first before launching into it. But I do find it interesting it comes up now as they're rolling out their tech control world. And it's something we all have to be aware and careful of and go beyond the sensational headlining. New genetic evidence came forward this week and suggests that just over 4 millennia ago, a group of Indian travellers landed in Australia and stayed. Now, the evidence emerged a few years ago, but it's now been formulated after a group of Aboriginal men's Y chromosomes matched with Y chromosomes typically found in Indian men. And up until now, the exact details have been unclear. But Irina Pugash from the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology may have recently solved the 1,000-year-old case. And 4,000 years before the first fleet landed on Australian shores, Indian adventurers had already settled and were accepted into the indigenous Australian culture. By studying the single nucleotide polymorphisms and their patterns, Dr. Pugash revealed a diverse tapestry of ancestry, one different from the lineage of the New Guinean people or the Philippine people. Now, the study found a pattern of SNPs that is only found in Indian genetics, specifically the Dravidian speakers from South India. And Dr. Pugash's results were consistent with the Y chromosome data found years earlier, and using both results, she calculated exactly when India arrived in Australia. And Dr. Pugash estimated this to be around 2217 BC, and said to be an interesting time for both Australia and India, and Indian civilization was just about formed. That is a wrong statement, actually. It was fully formed in some aspects, particularly around the Garden of Eden in India. And Australian culture at the time and wildlife were rearranging. Now, the Indus Valley Civilization, India, emerged between 2600 BC and 1900 BC, and during this period, Indus Valley managed to develop seaworthy boats, which they used to trade with their neighbours in the Middle East. And this new technology was used to get to Australia. And it said there is evidence of a shift in technology that coincides with the time Indians were thought to have arrived in Australia. Suddenly, indigenous Australians switched their Paleolithic crude stone tools for Neolithic refined tools. Interesting point. And this is confirmation of our From Russia with Love series, that the sub-grey race and the Kalimar followers thrown out of India did not just go to Egypt, but went north to Mongolia and then either across the Bering Strait, which they say was thousands of years ago, I don't think so, and into America and mixed with the Native American tribes, which is why they're called Indians. And also now via boat to Australia. And it is my belief that these people subsequently infected all other tribes globally via their DNA. And the reason I say infected is nothing to do with disease, but the dark force voodoo spirit prevalent in those peoples. They also taught other native tribes about sacrificing people and working for and with the dark forces, some of which reside within the spirit realms. Now, in other archaeological evidence of the Indians going to Egypt, they have now found that monkeys in Egypt, once thought to come from Africa, were actually from India. And in particular, the rhesus monkey, which brings up a whole heap of ponderings given the rhesus negative connotations. I'll leave you to ponder on that.